back to the workbench, and in this video we're going to take a look at some 10 Commandments stone cast wagon loads. And I've got here sugar beet, logs and bricks. These two loads are just additionals really to try, but it's the sugar beet, which is all of these, which is one that I'm actually very interested in. This came about after an inquiry by Bognor Regis Chris's Engage Model Railway asking about sugar beet locally, and it turns out that any rural location between the sort of pre-grouping days right up to BR days, 1970s, had flows, important flows of seasonal sugar beet by rail to the processing plants. So we need to do something with that. Now these are designed to fit 16-ton mineral wagons. Bachmann ones is a perfect fit. Some of the older ones a little bit tight. Very easy to deal with. If you need to reduce the size, you can't increase it after all. If you need to reduce the size, you would lay a piece of sandpaper down on your bench and then move the stone cast against the sandpaper to reduce the sides that you needed to reduce to fit the wagon. If they're slightly too small anyway, that's not a big problem, you can easily fill it up. But what we do need to do is paint these, because although they've got a nice base colour which is appropriate for the sugar beet, we need to get the earth colour in there, and for that I'm going to use some acrylic paint. Same for the bricks, they obviously need a sort of a red wash, and the logs, well, sort of a browny colour again really, isn't it? And then we'll fit them into some wagons and let you see what I do to get the spacing underneath. So 10 Commandments, based in Fife in Scotland, I've used before and they are excellent and not a lot of expense really. As you can see, I ordered 8 sugar beet loads, 2 log loads and 2 brick loads, and that came to the very reasonable amount of £25.60 plus £3.50 for delivery. They do lots and lots of other things, and it's well worth going along to their website or visiting them on Facebook for more. Just a satisfied customer, no connection. So what we're going to do now is get these painted up, and I found wagons already. I've pre-selected the wagons where they fit, so you won't see me cutting down the edges as mentioned earlier, because it's not needed. There's my paints ready to go. It's probably the colour range we're going to need. A little bit of wood as a palette, and let's see what we can do. Okay, so we've done the first coating of dirt brown onto the stone cast 10 Commandments wagon loads. Done the edges brown as well, because that helps it disguise in a wagon. But looking at the actual pictures of sugar beet, they've got a sort of they're a bit turnipy coloured, so they look a little bit like turnips to be honest, but bigger. So I think I need to go over it now and pick them out with a very light yellowy wash, and that should give me what I want. If we look on screen, you can see that's sugar beet. So we're trying to get that sort of colour. They're very muddy. Sometimes they were more muddy than other times, and they were very heavy train when they were full of mud, because you load in lots of water as well, I suppose. But I think what we need to do now is to go flick around with a finer brush and give those little conical bits a bit of a yellowy wash. See how they look. So there we go. Eventually we went with a sort of beige to represent the sugar beet, with the light yellow wash underneath and the brown. And once this is dry, I think it will look the part. You notice you've got a sort of a green forming there as well. So everything's been painted. The sugar beet was actually quite interesting. The brown was good, but the light yellow was no good. We ended up with a beige for the main bits, and then a splatter of the brown to add the dirt back. Logs were really easy. That was brown but with black on top as a drop, and then occasionally drag the brush even through the black to get a different colour. Bricks, I used an orange. There's a few little white bits where the paint hasn't gone in. I don't know whether to leave that as you know, just bits and pieces that would have been in there. Wagon wise, these loads are designed for the 16-ton mineral wagons, and as you can see, drops in a bit of plastic in there, but we need say 13mm spacer. I'm going to have a look at what we can use for that. Righto, so the spacers have been made and as you see, I've made them out of corrugated card, which is around about 3mm thick. It's thundering. We have 27 by 63mm, which ensures it will fit in all the wagons, and depending on whether you want a really well loaded wagon or a slightly more responsibly loaded wagon, you either use 3 or 4 of these little packings. And then I would suggest that you, once they're done, you don't have to, but you, for neatness, could glue them together with a little spot of PVA or something, just to keep them in position. I now have quite a few to make. Some time later, 41 spacers have been cut. Now to glue them together, and I'm just going to use a dash of previously diluted PVA, which should be super strong. So just a little dot of glue near the middle, put the next piece on. I'm going for 4s, and then to hold it down whilst it sets, one of the loads. See how I've been getting on. And there we have it, our loads. So we've got a pre-grouping log load there, and a Great Western, I think a 4 or 5 plank, and on loan from Wagon Coal and Transport Company, because they used to hire their wagons out when it was slack and they weren't using them for coal. Same for this one, Sugar Beet, and this one, both private owner wagons, and they've been hired out. The old BR steel 16 tonners, they're perfect for British rail times. And now we've got the London Brick Company bricks, and they're using an LMS 3-plank wagon as well for the rest of their bricks, for a little load that they're sending off to somewhere. Perfectly prototypical. The only thing I don't like is this big gap here, but these are not made for these wagons, they're made for 16 tonners, which are a little bit shorter. I dare say we could fill that in with something to make it look better. And one thing I've noticed, if you look there, you can see the card underneath, so it's probably worth painting the card black on top. I wouldn't suggest sticking the loads to the card, because they're quite heavy, they stay in there anyway, but it allows you to interchange and move the loads between wagons. So that's that little bit. I'll just see about what I can do there. If you only paint around the edges, after all that's the only bit that can show through, leave your space in the middle to write a prompt to remind yourself what the spacers are for. For example, the bricks, when there's only 3 cards, or the beet. Anyway, I hope that has been fairly interesting. Hopefully you'll be able to show you them all working and looking good. The problem of the not fitting quite properly with the beet in there, if you put it as centrally as possible, it really minimises it. Do you know what, if it's trundling along, I don't think you'll notice. Anyway, there we go. So 10 commandments, stone cast, scenic items, absolutely excellent, really pleased with them. So here we are, that's the wagons now on the track, and the O2 that has been worked on is there doing the pre-grouping wagons, whereas the BR Steel 16 tonners are in the foreground, all loaded up. So we'll take a closer look, and the next time you see them I'll tell you all about sugar beet traffic down here on the southern, but it was across all regions, and I'm not sure if it went up to Scotland actually, thinking about it. But anyway, We'll find out. There we have the 2 log loads at the back. We have 2 brick loads. Obviously not too many required, just 1 and a quarter wagon's worth. 3 grouping sugar beet with wagons hired from the local coal merchants. And in the front we have our era sugar beet train in 16-ton mineral wagons, which, as you know from my wonderful wagons video, all the private owner ones were replaced after the war, as they were all pulled and taken into national service. So many of the coal merchants and that found themselves getting new 16-tonners. But it was pretty much the end of the rather beautiful private owner wagons. Last pan round. Hope you've enjoyed that video and maybe a few tips. And if you've got a different way of doing it, please let me know in the comments.